So, welcome to the World Tour of Meditation. Our purpose here is to travel around the world, dispel myths around meditation so that you can actually access much deeper inner peace, calm, and joy, and especially in these times. Today, I'm so delighted to welcome Farima Berenji, who
Hi.
is an extraordinary dancer. She is from Iran, currently lives in the Silicon Valley, and as an Iranian woman and dancer, she's performed for President Obama. She's given a TED Talk. She has awards from the United Nations, and she comes from a long lineage of whirling dancers. Anything
Well,
you want to add to that?
yes. Hi, how are you? Thank you so much for having me.
It's so good
Yeah,
to have you. Thank you for
thank,
coming.
thank you. Thank you. Excited to be here
Wonderful.
virtually. Yeah.
You mentioned that that you're really proud of being an Iranian woman and dancer who's done all these things. Can you talk a little bit about that and why that's so important to you?
Of course, yeah, I think b- being a minority, being an artist who is a woman, it's a big struggle in this world. I mean, artists themselves struggle, and then just imagine being a woman and then being a minority. It's not easy, and so I think one of the reasons that I am proud is because it wasn't an it's not an easy path, and it wasn't an easy path, but I struggled a lot, and I really pushed myself, and I think just kind of like with all the obstacles that were there in front of me and all the ignorance that were there in front of me and the sexism that was there in front of me, I still pushed myself, and I'm proud to go up as much as I could, and I was able to reach some of the highest levels that I could. And and I think I when I look at them, and there are times when I you know get sad about something, and then I say, okay, that's it, but then I say, no, you know what, you said the same thing to yourself, and then look, it got you to TED, it got you to meeting the president, it got you. So I think each of them gives me um, a hope to go and reach the goal that I want. It's not easy, but it's I always just tell people that just always have hope.
What is it that keeps you going in those moments?
You know, it's a good question. I don't know what it was that kept me going. I think well, there are two. I would have to take it back. I think one of them is my family really pushes me. I think my mother is one of the reason, like, really just always tells me not to give up. And my students, sometimes I feel that they're my teacher than I am. I think they are the ones that always push me and say, no, you got to go, you got to do this, you got to do this, we'll take care of things, do it. They really, really are supportive. I mean, I have a very supportive group of people around me that they push me, and I think they are my number ones, because if for them, that just giving me the feedback, and sometimes some of the feedback might be negative, but I know that they telling me for the good of me, and so I try to change myself, or try change the way, because I know they're helping me. So I think uh, the I think these two have been my strength.
I think it's
Yeah,
beautiful that you mention your mother in this because,
yeah,
so often we as you say, we come up against the struggles sometimes, particularly like being a woman in the world,
yeah,
and so to draw on that strength and that motivation from your maternal line just
yeah,
makes it even more profound, right? That
yeah. Well, no, I owe this a lot to my grandmother and my mother, because they were my main dance instructors.
oh,
My I come from a family of all artists. My grandmother was a dancer in the National Ballet. My mother was an artist and a dancer in the National Dance Company of Iran. So they are all artists, and my uncle was a dancer as well. So uh, I am raised in a family of artists and mystics. My father's side were all mystics and dervishes. So it's um, that is given to me since birth. And I think part of the reason my mother always pushed me is because she couldn't continue her dreams. You know, there was a point of with all the things that happened throughout her life and our time of history that she couldn't pursue. So I think she often sees her dreams in me. So I think that's one of the reasons she always pushes me, and so it's beautiful to see that.
I want to ask you what your dreams are.
Oh, my dream, so many.
I also want to ask you what the difference is between a dancer and a mystic. So whichever question first.
uh, I think as artists, we have so many dreams, and I think we just have to spread out our dreams and spread it everywhere, and then see where it grows the best. Honestly, I think it's just I always say we're like pollens. We just go out everywhere, and everywhere we love and we want to do more and more and more. But sometimes there is a soil that doesn't grow the flower, and then there is a soil in another place that might grow. So we just have to try our best and see which areas accepts us more. So that's how I see it. That some places our dreams might grow, and some places it might not. And
How
there's
do you
nothing
have
we
to
can
take it
do.
personally when your flower doesn't grow in poor soil?
Uh, well, I sometimes I don't take it so well. I always struggle with that. It's like, why is this soil doesn't accept it? So it's I, I go through a phase of the whys, and then of course I always come back to myself, thinking that okay, is it me? Is it maybe I had to do more? Or maybe I had to push more? Maybe I had to study more? Maybe I had to do research. So there's all these whys, um, but then I have to come back and think that maybe it's not me, maybe it's the soil. So and there's nothing you can do. So at that point I just kind of say, you know what, I just pull back from that area, and I just go to another area, and then it grows. So I do go through that phase, but then I have to bring myself back. So it's a lot of hate and love relationship
So,
in your
Farima,
job.
where does your practice, your mystical practice, um, come into your sort of daily challenges in life?
Every day there's a mystical challenge. I think as a dervish,
And can you just say what a dervish is if someone has no idea?
a dervish, yeah. So it's you got to be careful with that, because there's a lot of people that see stuff in the YouTube, and they see like these whirling dervishes. Uh, you can't just really, they are whirlers, but not every whirler is a dervish. A dervish is someone who has studied the mystic world in a particular, let's say, Sufi path, or a mystical path, and they are given that title by the masters, that now they have um, not, I can't say a graduation, but they have achieved this title as the person who are, as what life has taught them and what the master has taught them, what they have learned themselves. So it's this awakening state that we say in a lot of the mystic world, that okay, now you're in that awakening state, and now you yourself are the master or the dervish. But that's where everything begins. That's when struggles begin. So that's when this rebirth of, okay, now you have this life and it's starting again, and now you have to experience it. So a dervish is someone who gives what it can from the heart to the people, to the community. It's the word dervish itself means a person who has an open heart. And Farsi means a door, a door to the heart. So that's literally the translation, a door to the heart. So it's we always say our heart is always open for people to come in
And
and
how does
experience.
turning in circles open your heart?
How does turning open the heart? It doesn't open just the heart; it opens everything. It opens the mind and the breathing, the lungs, the ears, the eyes. It opens everything. It opens your molecules, your cells, not just the heart. Oh,
Beautiful.
yeah, yeah. And then you asked me the second question: what is the difference between
A
mystic,
dancer and a dervish.
a dancer, and a dervish?
You said your mom's lineage were dancers and your father's lineage were mystics and dervishes. What is the difference?
Uh, a dancer is always learning everything by the book, by technique. You always have to be told what to do. A mystic is not going by the book, by the people. It goes by the heart and nature. So we see everything in nature. We see the face of the divine in nature. And we believe that once you're free, that's when the true artist comes out. Uh, an artist should not be, and that's the way I teach my dancers, is I will teach you the technique, but at the end, you have to see what your heart tells you. If a dancer is not directly communicating with the heart or with anything around them, then that person is just a dancer. If a dancer is communicating with the heart and everything around them and sees herself through them and communicates with them and just gets herself and says, you know what, I don't know, you lead me, that is a mystical dancer. Yeah.
It gives me chills when you talk about it. It really
Yeah. Yeah. So there's a huge difference between a whirler and a churner. I don't like to call mystical dancers churners.
what
A,
does churner mean?
a churner would be someone who is a dancer, who's a ballerina, for example. When I used to take ballet classes, they would tell me to churn. And so when you're churning, you're always aware of your surrounding. You always have to spot. So you're still in the material world. You have to understand the notes of the choreography. You have to understand where you're going, what to do, listen, follow the rules. That is a churner. A whirler is completely the opposite. A whirler has to be internally. The mind just goes shuts and you go through your subconscious and nothing else matters. And so you just give, like I said, you just kind of give yourself up to the universe, and then the universe makes you go around. That is a whirler. You are no longer in a state of the material world. Anything that is in the material world, then you're just a dancer and a turner. Anything in the internal world or this twilight world, then that's a whirling and a mystic.
And
And
would you say
you
that,
should combine them both. It's very important to combine them both.
which is how the mystical experiences come in your day to day?
Yes. Yeah.
Before we get into how to combine them both, would you say that this mystical inner world, this that you get in whirling, would you say that that is a meditation?
Of course it is. It is. It's a moving meditation. We have so many different kinds of meditation. I'm not an expert on all the other uh, East Asian meditation or maybe Western meditation. I cannot call myself an expert, but I am a master of a Sufi order, and I do and we do call it a moving meditation. Instead, we have zikr, which we sit and we are moving our body and our head, and we go into that state of of ecstasy. And when we are standing and whirling, that is a meditation. When we are walking and bowing, that is a meditation. So these are all Sufi meditations. And the whirling itself is not a dance. I don't like to call it a dance. Unfortunately, there are dancers and people on social media that call it a dance. But as masters, we try to teach our students not to call it a dance, because it is a prayer and it is a meditation. So it is more respectful to call it the prayer movement prayer or meditation movement, or anything with that has a more respectful way um, to introduce this, rather than just say it's a dance. Which really is not a dance. Yeah.
what is the kind of structure around it? And I'm aware that with a lot of very sacred practices, sometimes certain things are confidential.
Mm-hmm.
But and if that's the case, I don't know. But what can you share with us about the container or the introduction, the closing, about how the practice looks, like what the steps one takes?
For the whirling itself, or just for the Sufism?
Oh, all of them.
Uh-huh.
The whirling, the sitting churning,
Yeah.
the Sufism,
Yeah.
all of them.
Um, I have to always be careful of what how I'm mentioning this in the broader social media, because there are so many different Sufi orders, and that's unfortunately the mistake that the Western culture thinks that is only one. They see that on YouTube and think, oh, that's the only one, or they see one zikr, one whirling, and they say that's the only one. Unfortunately, it's not. We have so many different Sufi orders, and each of them have their own way of prayer. Each of them have their own way of rules. So it's difficult for me to show something and say this is it, and then people might take that and then go somewhere and say, well, no, this is wrong. She told me definitely different, or say, well, she was wrong. This is different. So it's you have to, in a broader sense, you have to be careful what you say it, because there's so many.
Mm.
Uh, I can speak of the order that I come from, and I studied. I I grew up in a very Zoroastrian family oriented, and my first Sufi master was a Zoroastrian Sufi, and they are from the Khorasan region, which was the original mystical Persian mystical path. They kept the tradition there, which originated 12,000 years ago by worshiping the sun. So these Sufis are the keepers of the flame, we call them. And so I come from that area. I come from that society that I was taught that way. But then there are ways of the more conservative way, which I studied all. I mean, as to be a master, you have to study all and to know it all. Of course, I studied all, but this is where I come from, and this is the way I teach it, and this is the way I do it. And so I studied with another master from the Turkish Mevlevi, um, and but I went back to my original teaching of the Yarasan, which I now am under the lineage and the teaching of the Yarasan, which are which we call the keepers of the flame, which are the original Sufi, like the Sufi orders
What
of
does it mean
Persia.
to keep the flame?
Have you ever heard the story of the Magi, the three wise men who went after and found Jesus? And
Yes.
so they are from that lineage, and they are the lineage of the of the Magi's, the Zoroastrian wise men who are known to be kept the sacred fire going. And so our whirling styles are different. We are known to be very wild, and we call our whirlers Shams churners or Shams whirlers. And Shams in Farsi means the sun. So we are the sun dancers, we are the sun whirlers. Our zikrs are different. Again, uh, it depends really who you are talking to and from which Sufi order. That and the Mevlevi Sufis have a different tradition. The Mevlevi Sufis are very choreograph oriented. There are a lot of rules that are associated with it, whereas we are ruleless, lawless, crazy dervishes. Yeah, I remember a story of my Turkish master who was a lot more conservative than my other master. And every time I would go to Turkey, and they would have these, very large ceremonies of these calm whirling dervishes would come, and they're just whirling, in their calm way. And then suddenly I come in and I just start screaming and turning my head, and then he would just come into the room and he'd be like, "Oh my God, Farima is here." Everybody would be quiet, and then I would enter, everybody would scream, and he would say, "Oh yes, earthquake." And he's like, "The crazy people are here now."
Farima, could you try putting to words some of the experiences you've had while whirling?
uh, I can, but it's very hard for the people who've never experienced whirling to kind of be able to understand me. They might call me crazy. So,
Be able to guide a short experience?
hmm?
Might you be able to guide a short
Oh
experience?
God, sure. Yeah, I can briefly tell you something small to
Sure.
try at home. Uh, Make sure you breathe. I mean, if you're into meditation, I'm sure the breathing will come very naturally for you. But you have to make sure. The hardest part of the whirling is the breathing. A lot of people think it's the technique. Actually, it's the breathing. I try to work with my teachers for almost 1 to 2 months of just breathing, because it's the breathing that makes you dizzy. It's the breathing that keeps you wobbly. If the everyday breathing that we do, this is why we're always in chaos and stress and not calm, because we don't breathe correctly. And we try to argue to say, no, we are breathing correctly, but we're not. And I see it on all my students. When they start, it takes them at least a month to really get grounded, because they're not breathing correctly. The breathing we do every day is not right. In the mythical world, I'm sure this is true in the meditation world, but in the whirling mythical world, we say once a true mystic or prophets were those who could breathe in 7 seconds in and 7 seconds out. And you really go into the state of just being dead, as if you're in complete sleep. And if you ever see a monk and they're just sitting there, they're breathing 7 seconds in, 7 seconds out. But we might not ever reach that point. We might never ever become a mystic or a prophet. I mean, they're been chosen, but we can try to reach at least, be in the middle. Do 3 seconds or 4 seconds or 5 seconds. And I know people around me that they're into meditation. They said they've reached 5, 6 seconds. That is the correct way. But
And without trying, obviously, without counting.
yeah, without counting. But if you can breathe in at least 3 seconds and inhale and then exhale 3 seconds, that would really put you in the state of a calmness. And once you have that state, that's when you start to whirl. So you have to put yourself into that state first. So don't just jump in quickly and do the whirling. It's very important to calm your body, to clear everything in your mind. Um, uh, Find a space that you feel comfortable. Take a few deep breaths. We do have zikr words, which are repetition of words. They are words that are the names of God or divine that we say as we breathe in and breathe out, and they help us. For example, when we inhale and then exhale the word who, and who in Sufi culture is the breath of God. So we exhale who, and as we say it, that itself almost takes 3 seconds. So we try to use that a repetitional word. And if you don't want to use those words, if it could be any word you want. It could be love. It could be divine. It could be unity. It could be a name of a person you love. So just taking the name and just repeating it as you inhale and exhale, that helps you not to think anymore and to clear your brain. And the breath is constantly moving into that 3 to 4 seconds. Once your body is into that state, then you can stand up slowly. Of course, we have a bowing ritual, and those are all respectful ways if you do it in a ceremony. But for yourself, when you're in that state of calmness and you're not thinking anymore, try to not look anywhere else. Maybe you can look at your hand, maybe you can look at a clear space, and start to slowly take a step and slowly turn. Uh, I do teach a technique, but of course I can't teach it now, but just briefly, just slowly turn, breathe and turn, and keep repeating those words as much as you can to occupy the brain, not to think of anything else.
The words being the who?
The who or anything you want to say. It doesn't have to be the who. What we're trying to do here is we're trying to confuse the brain cells for them to not to tell you you're getting dizzy and fall down. So whatever we can do to confuse those little cells, because the moment those cells go into the thinking mode, then you're out and you can't do it anymore, and you just stand it, you can't do it. So it's important that you work with your brain at that moment. The heart and the brain are trying to argue with each other right now.
So it's almost like you have to be in a meditative state before you even do it.
Yes.
And so I don't even know how to ask this question.
You don't have to be, it does help, but no, you don't have to be, you have to be in a calm state to do it. I can't say it in a meditative state, because when you start to do the whirling, that's when you go inside.
Okay,
You
that was
need
the
to
question.
be,
Where does the whirling take you if you're already calm?
yes, these processes are, we're trying to put you into the calm state, of into the thoughtless and calmness state.
Which I think a lot of people sometimes call meditation, but that word means
Yeah.
a lot
Uh,
of
but
things.
for us, we are still, until we go into that movement,
Yeah.
or until we are into the zikr, then we are into the meditation, and we don't understand anything after that.
We
So
don't understand anything after that.
now that we're into our own world, then it's
Can you,
only the heart.
yeah, can you get into describing what that state is? Because I think just on the show, people are speaking to meditation from so many different perspectives that, you know, it's almost like there's a million threads coming into sort of the same essence of who we really are at our
Yeah.
core. And I think everyone describes it a bit differently, and maybe the paths are a bit different as well. So what is that, how do you experience that state where what did you just say, like nothing matters,
Yeah,
nothing?
the nothingness, the
Yeah.
nothing. Well, like I said, I'm not an expert on the other kinds of meditation,
Yes, but in your
but
tradition.
I do believe, and I'm as my masters believe, that all meditations lead you to nothingness. So no matter what you do, the ending point is here, the soul. And I believe that even in, correct me if I'm wrong, but even in the Indian tradition, they say that the last chakra is here, that it's here. So it is, for us, the seven pathways that we go through, the ending is here, the nothingness. This is nothing. It's nothing here. And so we try to reach here into that nothingness. So I think we all eventually, just like any religion, at the end, we are all created equally. And with any meditation, at the end, we all try to reach that nothingness. And as a whirler, when I do whirl, when I hit that point of ecstasy, or we in Farsi we say mastan, the drunkenness, that is our nothingness. We are completely drunk, uh, and uh, if it's as if someone, I don't know the experience of the drinking or the smoking, but I have, when I talk to them, there are people that come up to me and say, oh, what did you smoke, like what did you have? I'm like, nothing. They're like, oh, it's like us when we smoke and we go and get high, we start dancing. And so I feel like, okay, that could be it. I don't know, but um, I basically do feel nothing. I as I go into that state, I only see myself, and then there is the other me. We communicate. There is me, and it's like this dream state where I'm talking to myself,
Mm.
and there's these. The two of us are meeting. Um, in the mythical world, we say that it is the ego, the other us, or the baby of us. There's always, in Sufi tradition, we believe there's two of us, one the internal and the one the external. So the external is me, but I never communicate internally with me. So when I whirl, my internal comes out and we face each other. And so it's that you see, and the internal me is guiding me at that moment. And I don't remember. There are times that I do not remember what I have said, what I have done. I have other people tell me that you were talking about something, or you were doing stuff with your hands, and I don't remember. So it's just like falling asleep, and then you wake up from that sleep. You had the dream. You don't often remember what you had to dream of, and then when the body knows that it's time to wake up, it wakes up. So that is what I can explain to you how it feels. It's it's beautiful. It's like, having to sleep and then you just don't want to get up, you want to keep sleeping. But then the body says, "No, it's time to get up now." So there are times where you don't want to, and that's why there are times where I would whirl for hours. It's been 5-6 hours that I just want to whirl and I don't come out of it. Um, but when the body is ready, it just wakes up.
Extraordinary.
Yeah.
Extraordinary. Wow. Um, it's extraordinarily beautiful to hear from you because, well, because you're beautiful, but also because I feel like, especially in the West, but also in like the parts of the East that I'm from, like we don't know a lot really about the Sufi tradition besides like
Unfortunately,
Rumi or Rumi cards or Rumi quotes or, you know.
even where I'm from, I go to Iran all the time and I teach them because they don't know. So it's, I'm always going, and I have workshops and teachings because they don't know. Many people
I
don't know.
believe you're also like a scholar, right? Like a
Yes.
historian. So sort of like I have a scholarly question here now
Yeah.
for you.
Uh-huh.
Why do you think it is that like spirituality and connecting with the inner world from the Indian tradition, from the um, Chinese, Korean, Japanese, and like Southeast Asian traditions have sort of caught the Western world and sort of taken over with like chakras and mindfulness and all of that um, in a way that your tradition like is hasn't become quite that easy to access for everyone. Um,
There are many things. One, it's of course media, and the concept of advertisement and marketing. It's uh, unfortunately because we are in a society that's been closed for many years now, for
yeah,
the Western culture, for them to really go deep and study the culture or study and so it's just been fallen back. um, I also think, politically also it has kept them from spreading out. There's a lot of things that it's still not allowed to be done, or not allowed to be videoed, or not allowed to be written about, not allowed to be done, ritualistic. And but I also feel that most of it, unfortunately, has to do with us and ourselves, people. We tend to just not care anymore, and a lot of the people, putting politics aside, putting trendiness or social media aside, or uh, feel like these traditions are too old school or too boring, and that they don't want to continue these traditions. They, for them, pop culture is the best, and so because of that, these traditions fall in our society, and no one goes after them, uh,
unless
which is
they've already
unfortunate.
become
And,
trendy.
and so yeah, so as and I see it now. I mean, I think it's not just our culture. I think in any culture, I mean, you will hardly these days, unfortunately, find a real yoga teacher or a real Kathak teacher, because a Kathak is a temple dance. It's very sacred. But everything has become fusionized about modern Kathak this, Kathak fusion, and you see it, and you just, you're
I'm
like,
actually
no, this is,
I'm actually a Bharatanatyam dancer. That's what I trained in. Um,
so,
and
and I'm sure you know that it's
what
so
I
many
know is
artists
that
are,
the best teachers I had refused to even teach me on Skype.
yeah. And we are the same, and because we and but you see it in its popular culture, and and we have whirling styles, we have zikr styles that we are forbidden to do outside of our community. We are forbidden to even show it, and I still, even if I want to teach it to my students, I have to get permission from the elders to be able to do it. So um, but then there, some of these movements that a whirling is doing is so sacred, it's so ritualistic, that when we see it, somebody is doing it on YouTube and just like not caring how it's being done, and you're basically bringing this certain energy in, and you're not realizing you're doing it, and you're disrespecting it with what you're wearing or what you're using or the music you're using. It's very harmful to that community, to the culture, to the people. And so that also puts a pressure into us, because then the elders come and says, you know what, if these people can't respect our culture, then we're not going to teach it anymore, and so it's going to get closed. And so you have all these problems. You have and mainly it's us ourselves. um, if we try to teach things better in a more respectful way, and we push it through, then we can put aside the marketing, we can put aside the political, and try to really uh, be forceful about holding the ancient tradition the way it is. Then maybe we can do it. But because we see people doing it the wrong way, and then the politics come in, and then the marketing comes in, and then the money might making it comes in, then that destroys it. I mean, there are, for us, teaching some rituals, it's forbidden to do it for money. And unfortunately, I've seen people taking coming in from the West to Iran or to Turkey, sneaking in, taking these rituals and coming in and having classes and these fusionist workshops and teaching these rituals and making a lot of money. And and for us as masters, it's forbidden to do that. And so it's very, very it makes us upset, and makes the community upset. So then they block it and say, no more, you can't come in, you can't see it, you can't learn it, we can't teach it to you. So what happens? It goes down, and no one knows it. So there's so much that unfortunately, uh, my master and I are writing a book about our Sufi um, heritage and our Sufi order, and we are being very careful about what we write, and the elders are really guiding us on what to write, because there have been times where we had, unfortunately, again, people from the West, and there were a couple people even from Iran that came in and did an interview with us and did a book, and and we realized that they sold the book with so many wrong information just to make it popular for themselves. And every ritual that they wrote was wrong. Everything they wrote was completely wrong. And so we have to be very careful. That's why I think less people know about our ritual, less people know about our culture. I think that's why less people know that there's so many different Sufi orders around, so many different styles around, so many different ways. Um, and so because of that, what they see on YouTube, the mind automatically thinks that's the way it is. And the more sexy it is, the more popular it becomes. The more marketing and trendy look it is, the more popular it becomes. And that's the problem that we have. And so we try to stay away from that. But I know staying away from that, it brings us down.
How do you navigate this? And thanks for bringing this up. You're the first person I think I've spoken to on this series who's brought up this thread of, if I may use these words, cultural
Yeah,
appropriation. And that's something I've, obviously thought about a lot over my years as an anthropologist and
yeah.
looking at yoga in the West. Um, how do you envision, like, I don't know, if you were in charge of the world, which is a silly question, but if you were in charge of the world, humor me for a second, how would you navigate this thread between cultural appropriation and, like, letting people have access to paths to their divinity?
First of all, you don't want to be, you don't want me to be a world leader.
But I think I can get it.
You don't want me to be a leader. You have not seen me direct my dance company, so you don't want to be a leader. Um, I think the best thing I would do is just as the scholarly way that I do is through just education. I would just push education. I think the more you educate and you open the mind of the young, and uh, especially the young, to be able to how old was I when I started this? I was 3 years old. My mother started putting me in dance classes, and then when I was 7, they start putting me into mystic schools. They start training me, and so
Sounds like something out of a novel.
yeah. But since I was a child, I was learning these, and they pushed me through, and they made me have an open mind and said, "You choose." I think giving them the freedom to choose, giving them the option to choose, but also having the availability of education for them is very important, and then giving them these resources. Okay, these are the things, and then you're you have your mind can be your god, and your god can tell you what road to take, what path to take, what to believe. What does your conscience tell you? That is the most important thing. It's whatever your conscience tells you to believe, then you believe, but we have to provide it. And if we don't have the right education, if we always learn to just sit and watch a video from YouTube, that is not education. um, to me, education is mean traveling the world if you have the resources to do it, communicating with different people, getting yourself involved with different communities that do different ritualistic movement, dances, meditation, prayers, and that is education. It doesn't have to be just books or being on a computer and Googling. Not everything on Google is true. Not every book is true. I just told you someone wrote a book, but that was all fake. By seeing with your own eyes, then you see the truth. If you actually go into India and see a real Kathak dance, if you actually go to Iran and see a real Sufi ritual, if you go to, so that's when that's education.
How do you even know if you're seeing the real though? Because there's such a tourism industry, right?
That's your good question. You also have to be careful. Of course, if you go to the bazaar and if you see a whirling dervish and they're paying him, that's fake. It's just entertainment. You got to go to the rural areas, go to the villages, just like it has always been and it will always be this way. I studied these ritualistic, these dances that have been lost for thousands of years, and I'm bringing them back. I had to go to the village. I had to go find the leader in that village. I had to spend time in that village. I had to, uh, and even for them, they weren't sure if they should allow me to watch or learn, but they did. So you have to go and be an adventurer. That is your education. Yeah, if you're willing to take this step, if you're willing to take the adventure, the road will open for you. But if you sit there and always say, well, this, that, no, it's not this, well, I don't want to go this, well, they don't have this good food, or I don't want to get sick, or then you will always be who you are, and you will always believe what Google tells you. So you have a choice. Either open your heart and be the adventurer and learn education through your eyes and heart, or sit behind a computer and see it. And even me talking to you, I'm sure people are watching this and I'm saying the same thing. Don't believe what I say because it's through a virtual communication. If you have doubts of what I say, if you don't believe it, then go. Then see it with your own eyes. Test it, try it. There's never been why can't you try it? Why can't you test it?
And
You
how
know?
will people know where to test it and try it from? Or how
Uh,
can they get in touch with you if they'd like to?
uh, they can contact me, of course, if they have any questions. I can always provide my email or website. Um, but if they can always go and do some research online, but make sure it's a credible source. Uh, it, I think one important thing is don't just the first thing you find, don't assume is this, or the first news you hear, don't assume is this. Do a few more and compare them. uh, I always, for myself, I always try to teach my students, whatever you do, like in the dance world, um, always write a pro and a con. Okay, if you want to do a choreography, if you want to study a choreography, what is this choreography giving this to me? Okay, it's pretty, I have pretty costumes on, I'm learning this movement, I'm learning this movement. But the cons are, oh, I have to move my body this way and I might hurt my back, might get dizzy, I don't like the music, and then compare them. If the cons are more than the pros, then you don't want to study this dance.
And Farima, is that something you've done with your mystical practice?
Yeah, 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 I have. So you should always test yourself. And that's part of it being a mystic and a dervish. You test yourself all the time. So
Thank you.
yeah, the world is full of tests.
Is there anything at all that you'd like to share? Anything else?
uh, no, thank you for watching and listening to me. And I hope wherever you are in the world that you enjoy your dance, your meditation. There, there's never, dancing has always been beautiful. Meditation has always been beautiful. There is never harm in meditating or dancing. So keep it up. And you never know how much you're changing the world just by a little meditation you do. So keep it up.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Do you have some kind of newsletter or online classes or downloadable things or live things that people can learn more if they really love what you said? As I
Yes. Well, as any other young modern people out there, I have a lot of social media stuff. So people can contact me through my website, which is farimadance.com, FARIMADANCE.com. I'm on Instagram and they can email me, at info@farimadance.com. And I, right now, with all the crazy things that's going on, I do teach online, and then I do have videos that I send out to students. So I teach virtually so people can learn. I do give consultation and I do give lectures online as well. So yeah, the technology world like this is out there for people if they like to contact me. They can. Yeah.
thank you so
And
much,
yeah,
Farima.
thank you.
So
Thank
beautiful.
you. Thank you so much.